Well, thank you everyone for joining us tonight. I am here with Joey and Rebecca from Beyond the Bell Tours. If we haven't connected before, my name is Kelly and I am the founder of Impact Travel Alliance. If you're not familiar with our organization, we are a global community and nonprofit that's aimed at improving the world through travel. We do this through education and advocacy around sustainable tourism and helping travelers understand how to explore in a way that has a positive impact on local communities and our environment. So our event tonight is focused on exploring the lesser known side of Philly. And I am going to pass it off to Joey and Rebecca and let them take the lead from here.
Hi, everyone. We're really excited to give you this little virtual LGBTQ history tour. My name is Rebecca, and I'm one of the co-founders of Beyond the Bell Tours. I'll pass it off to Joey to introduce himself quickly.
My name is Joey. I'm the other co-founder of Beyond the Bell Tours.
So I'm going to quickly share my screen. Kelly, can you enable my screen sharing really quickly? So
yes.
Show people a little bit of pictures of some of the places we're going to talk about, some of the places that you'd see on a walking tour. Philly has a very unique Gayborhood, so I'm excited to showcase that during Pride. Oops. No, don't do that. I don't know why I did that. Okay. Okay, so we're Beyond the Bell Tours. We design inclusive historical tours of Philadelphia. And that means we are doing people's history, and we create tours that include women, people of color, queer folks, and Indigenous people. Typically the groups left out of mainstream narratives in especially American cities. So our cornerstone tours are the Badass Women's History Tour, as well as the Gayborhood Tour of Philadelphia. And Philadelphia's Gayborhood is really unique for a variety of reasons. First and foremost, it is the first formal Gayborhood in the country. So many other of what we know as Gayborhoods in other major cities in America, like the Castro District or West Hollywood, are sort of known by the public to be Gayborhoods, but if you were to open a city map, you wouldn't necessarily know. And in Philly, you open the city map and you know the Gayborhood is the Gayborhood. This has kind of a quirky history. Essentially, a reporter goes on TV and says, you know, Mr. Rogers, it's a beautiful day in the Gayborhood, and it completely sticks. It was Philadelphia, that part of the city had been known informally as a Gayborhood since the 1800s. It was a red light district, a place where people were coming for all kinds of reasons in the 18 and 1900s. But in 1995, this reporter named Warner, who was a gay guy, says it's a beautiful day in the Gayborhood, and it sticks. And then in 2007, Jason Street adds the Rainbow Street signs, making it the second city in the country to do that after Chicago. So we have a variety of Rainbow Street signs that make it visually really obviously a Gayborhood, but that difference is that when you open a city map, it says Gayborhood. So the other thing that makes Philly unique is we have our own pride flag. So here you can see our pride flag have a brown and a black stripe. This was added in 2017 by our LGBTQ Officer of Affairs, the Amber Hikes, who is pictured below. She's in the red suit. She added the black and brown stripe as solidarity to Black and brown folks in the LGBTQ community. And this flag has been adopted internationally, and you can see it all over the world, which is really cool. I know I've traveled and seen the flag all over the world, and it's made me really excited. So here's another flag of the official flag raising in 2017. And the flag was really elevated at the at the Met Gala because Lena Waithe wore it as a cape, which is pretty cool, pretty amazing. But that was one of the reasons it kind of gained this like kind of national and international momentum. So talking about Black and Brown community members, I think it's important for people to understand that Stonewall was a riot, and that Stonewall was a riot against police brutality, predominantly led by Black and Brown trans women. And so I do want to start today with a story about police brutality. So just to let everybody know that you're going to hear a little bit of violence against Black and Brown women, specifically Black trans women, that talks about police brutality. So in Philadelphia, we have a story that is about NIZAH Morris. NIZAH Morris was a trans woman in Philadelphia who became really popular as a drag performer at Bob and Barbara's, which is one of our premier drag venues and has the oldest drag night in the city. She also was a kind of like a famous Buddhist. She was considered a religious leader, which was really important at the time. And she dies under mysterious circumstances that are involved with the police in 2002. And the story goes that she gets drunk in the Gayborhood and she collapses outside of a gay bar, and somebody calls 911. And a police officer who's doing their rounds in that part of the city sees NIZAH and tells everyone to cancel the 911 call, that the police officer will take NIZAH to Jefferson, which is the hospital closest by. And this is where the story kind of loses a little bit of the information because NIZAH, a few blocks away, is found dead the next day, found dead a few hours later. And the story that the police officer tells is that NIZAH gets into the car and refuses to go to the hospital and insists on being taken home. And then a couple blocks away, just like gets out of the car and gets hit by a passing motor vehicle. But a lot of people do not believe this story. The problem is the police officer lies in the police logs about what time NIZAH's picked up. Additionally, a lot of people who saw her collapse outside of the bar say absolutely not, she could not have gotten out of the car herself. There's this big fight with the police to try to make sure that her death is classified as a homicide. And there's a big back and forth between the public and the police force. But it's clear to say that a lot of people suspect foul play, which is what I believe as well. And then there's been a complete lack of transparency and kind of a lack of investigation taking in her death. So that is a little bit about NIZAH Morris. She's remembered well in the city of Philadelphia. There've been a lot of protests about her death. So I want to remember her today. She does have her own temporary wheat paste in the city of Philadelphia. Earlier this year, 20 pieces of prominent women were done for Women's History Month. Temporary street art images, and one of the images is outside of Giovanni's room, and it's done by Marissa Velasquez Ribas. And so this is this piece, which I think is really beautiful, and it's outside Giovanni's room, which is amazing because Giovanni's room is the oldest continuously operating LGBTQ bookstore in the United States. So this is Giovanni's room. And so her image is outside of Giovanni's room. A little bit more about Giovanni's room. It was purchased in 2014 by Philly 8's Thrift because it almost closed down as a bookstore. And Giovanni's room is named after the Baldwin Giovanni's Room novel. But today it's a part bookstore, part thrift store. And it's really cool if you ever get to check it out. It was really important when it opened up in '73 because it became the only place in the Gayborhood that was public to people under the age of 21. And it was also open during the daytime. So before Giovanni's Room, most of the Gayborhood is nighttime, after dark, gay bars and other, type of nighttime institutions. And then there's this shift with Giovanni's Room that says, this is the first institution that is really pushing into the daytime, very formal, a place that young people can go to. But it was very controversial at the time because you would walk by these big windows and they would have windows with two men kissing, and with the books inside the windows were books about gay sex and books about men kissing with images of men kissing, and the windows were vandalized so frequently in the 80s because people were so scandalized by the things that they could see in the windows that they stopped fixing the windows and they just left them broken. So that's a little bit about Giovanni's Room. Joey, do you have anything to add about Giovanni's Room?
No, I think that's the important thing that resonates, is just a place for young people to go. Another thing to mention is that it's because young people go there, it becomes this intergenerational space where you can visualize what it looks like to be queer and to be around the city as like an elder queer person. So I think that's also an important thing for young folks and for elders to be like, okay, the young people are still invested in the community. And
cute. Yeah, definitely is an important space for that reason as well. And there's actually like a little bit more of like an exchange of knowledge, and people are telling people what books to read. So it's an important community space for sure. So a little bit about how Philly's history of activism for the LGBT community gets started. We have to start with the Dewey sit-in. The Dewey sit-in was the first sit-in in the United States for LGBTQ rights. And the story goes that there is a diner called Dewey's, late night diner. You can go there after going out in the Gayborhood. There's a location in the Gayborhood, and people are going there after they're partying and spending the night out at gay bars, and you can get a milkshake and a hot dog and a hamburger. But there's a second location in Rittenhouse, which is Philadelphia's sort of poshest neighborhood. And people, once the line starts getting too long outside of the Dewey's in the Gayborhood, people walk it's only about 5 blocks. So you walk about 5 blocks to get to the Rittenhouse location, where there are fewer people late night. And the Dewey's location in Rittenhouse was very concerned that all of these gay people were going to start to like bleed out of the Gayborhood and fill the straight Dewey's. And in order to kind of prevent this, they deny service to anyone who looks to be gay, and have this kind of written out methodology of who looks gay, and it includes feminine men and masculine women and people wearing gender non-conforming clothing, and they deny service. So about 150 people, gay people show up and stage a sit-in inside of Dewey's, and the police are called, and the police show up and they actually say, well, you actually have to serve these people. You can't not serve them for just the way that they're dressed. And it's actually one of the first time that discrimination laws, anti-discrimination laws are enforced in Pennsylvania. And this becomes the Dewey sit-in. And I have a historical image of the Dewey's. Joey, do you want to talk about why this image has been preserved?
Yeah. So the William Way LGBT Center in Philadelphia houses the Queer History Archives. And so there's a person who takes in all of the archival materials and catalogs it and stuff. And he chooses basically what gets preserved. And his name's Bob Skiba. And he chose to preserve this image because he thought the guy looked cute, who's like sticking his butt out, the fireman. And so he wanted it to be in like gay archives.
Yeah, which is very cute. This is how LGBTQ history is preserved. And this became a mural inside of the restaurant that is where the original location for Dewey's is in the Gayborhood. It's worth mentioning too that this Dewey's sit-in marker, which was installed in the fall of 2018, was the 11th historical marker in Philadelphia, making Philadelphia the city that has the most historical markers in the world for LGBTQ history. We have twice as many as New York, which is worth talking about. So we actually have pretty good preservation in terms of LGBTQ history. And this is another image from Dewey's. Oh, this is another image of Giovanni's room. So the Dewey's sit-in inspires a woman named Barbara Gittings, who becomes known as the mother of the LGBTQ rights movement. She's one of the first people to connect the idea of civil liberties to the identity of being gay. And she stages a protest called the Annual Reminder. And it's really exciting that we're talking about it today because it happened every year on the 4th of July. And it was to remind people on this day where people are celebrating their American rights and American independence that not everybody in America is included in that narrative, which is very apt for today as well. So she stages a protest called the Annual Reminder every year on the 4th of July, leading up to Stonewall, inspired by the Dewey sit-in. And it was a very curated protest. She would handpick people to dress the way that they dressed for work. So you can see people are formally dressed wearing ties. She wanted people to dress the way they dress for work so that the message would be, we're just like you, which is very different from Pride, which is sort of like, we're not like you, deal with it. But this was her methodology, and that's how she felt the needle was going to be moved. She was famous for owning exactly one dress, which is the dress that she wore to the Annual Reminder. So every image that you see of the Annual Reminder, she's wearing this striped dress. So that's the Annual Reminder. Leading up to Stonewall, she stages the Annual Reminder. When Stonewall happens, she wants to be at Pride. So she starts busing up people from Philadelphia and New York, Philadelphia and DC, and doesn't continue with the Annual Reminder. But her big piece of work that she's well remembered for as well is the declassification of homosexuality as a mental illness. She decides that no amount of protest, no amount of activism can change people's minds about gay people as long as doctors are prescribing cures to homosexuality. So she decides she's going to take a panel to the APA, which is meeting in Texas that year, and she brings a bunch of her Philly friends. And she says the thing that needs to happen is we need a psychiatrist to come out. So she gets this guy named John Fryer to come out to the APA, and he comes out voice disguised and masked as Dr. Anonymous. He comes out and he says, I'm a gay man and I'm a psychiatrist, and the symptoms that you see in your gay patients, higher rates of depression, higher rates of anxiety, are not a result of them being gay, but rather how people treat gay people. Of course, they have higher rates of mental illness, right? They are kicked out of their homes, their bars are raided, they are fired from jobs. If they're being mistreated, they're going to have higher rates of mental illness. And this was a complete paradigm shift for the mental health community. And this results in the declassification of homosexuality as a mental illness that year, which is 1972. And, but my favorite part of that story is John Fryer, of course, comes out as Dr. Anonymous because if it doesn't go well, he comes out as mentally ill to the mental health community, and he will lose his license and he will ruin his career and his life. So he comes out, voice disguised and masked, which you can see in the image above. But the weird thing about John Fryer is he was like 6'4". He was like the tallest psychiatrist in Philadelphia. So everybody knew it was him. So he to his dying day, he's like, absolutely nobody knew it was me. But everyone was like, John, we all knew it was you, which is very charming. And he has his own historical marker in Philadelphia as well. I wanted to show that the archival image that I had showed earlier of the Annual Reminder is included in a mural on the side of the William Way Center. Additionally, Barbara Gittings has her own plaque where she lived on 21st and Locust, and Locust Street in the Gayborhood is nicknamed Barbara Gittings Way. I would argue that she is the most memorialized woman in Philadelphia, which is pretty cool that she's a gay woman. We can talk a lot about how women are not memorialized in another talk. So I wanted to show these a little closer up. And she had her own wheat paste as well, which was done by the same artist as NIZAH. So, leading from the annual reminder, one of the activists who was part of the annual reminder is named Kiyoshi Kuromiya. Kiyoshi was born in Wyoming in a Japanese internment camp, and he makes his way to Philadelphia to study at Penn. And while he's at Penn, he stages a big protest, and it's during Vietnam, and he's a really important pacifist. He stages a protest where he tells everybody, if you don't show up, if you know, thousands of people don't show up, I am going to kill a dog in front of Van Pelt Library, which is the big library at Penn. And thousands of people show up to protect this dog. Everyone is frantic that this dog is going to be killed. He says, I'm going to burn this dog alive. And it's very inflammatory and everyone loses their mind. And he shows up and he says, congratulations, everyone. You've saved the life of one dog. How about saving the life of thousands of people in Vietnam? And this is an anti-napalm protest that is pretty radical and really definitely gets a lot of people thinking. Additionally, he was the only openly gay delegate to the Black Panther Party, and he receives a lot of criticism for this. It was the consensus among the LGBT community that the Black Panther Party was problematic with their homophobia, and he makes this statement where he says, I do not believe the Black Panther Party is more homophobic than any white group of people. As such, I think it's anti-Black to not work with them. So he makes this statement, he works closely with the Black Panther Party, becomes the first gay, openly gay Black delegate, openly gay delegate to the Black Panther Party. And the other thing that he does that is very funny, and he has this very funny approach to nonviolent protest. One of the things he does while he's road tripping, he loves to road trip across America, loves Route 66. So he's road tripping on Route 66 and he goes in and he's often denied service because he is obviously gay, his friends are gay, often denied service on the road in kind of the rural parts of America. And whenever he's denied service, he goes over to the jukebox and plays God Bless America 46 times on the jukebox until either he's kicked out or given the food that he wants. So I think that's really cool. So that is Kiyoshi Kuromiya. Our next LGBTQ Philadelphian is ALAIN LOCKE. ALAIN LOCKE is the first Black Rhodes Scholar. He was born in Philadelphia and attended Central High School, very highly educated, goes on to Harvard, and then gets a Rhodes Scholarship. And when he gets a Rhodes Scholarship, the way it works is you're the only Rhodes Scholar in your state, and then you apply to the different colleges at Oxford that you want to go to. And he gets denied when he applies to the college. You're guaranteed entry, but he gets denied to all of the colleges at Oxford. And he can't figure out why until he realizes that all of the white Southern Rhodes Scholars have refused to go to whatever college he's going to go to. So instead of doing anything about it, Oxford has just denied him entry. And the Rhodes Scholarship forces Oxford to accept him into one of the colleges, and he does go to Oxford. But this kind of changes his perspective forever. He comes back to America and becomes very influential in the Harlem Renaissance. He's considered by many to be the dean of the Harlem Renaissance. He has an interesting kind of difference of thought with W.E. Du Bois. W. Du Bois writes that he believes that Black artists have an obligation to create political art, and ALAIN LOCKE stands up to him and says, I disagree with you. I think Black artists only have an obligation to their art. So this was kind of a philosophical difference between the two of them. He has a mural in the Gayborhood, as well as a school named after him. And then this plaque, which is in Philly, but missing, right, Joey? So he has his own mural on the side of the Writer's Block Rehab, which is also the only gay bar in the Gayborhood that's owned by a person of color. Although a Black-owned gay bar opened in Philly 2 weeks ago. So we'll have to change that part of the tour, which is pretty cool, called Jocks, PHL. So this is Writer's Block Rehab, owned by a South Asian couple that decided that they wanted to make a bar that was for quiet gays. I really love this because there's a lot of, in the Gayborhood, if you want to spend a Saturday night there, it's very dancey. It's a lot of parties. And he kind of, the Writer's Block Rehab was really trying to make a different kind of space, a place where you could go by yourself and just read a book and kind of relax. And I really love that. And I think that's really fun. And they have, I think, the best cocktails in Philadelphia. So something to think about next time you travel to the city and take a tour with us. So the next person I have for you is CHARLENE. CHARLENE is is most well known for, so local to Philadelphia via Mississippi. She's most well known for the Trans Wellness Conference. The Trans Wellness Conference is a conference where medical professionals and trans folks are in the same room discussing resources that are available to trans folks, what resources need to become available, and kind of healthcare specifically for the trans community. CHARLENE decided this was the conversation that needed to happen in Philadelphia. It's now the largest in the world, happens every summer. It's free for all, which is extremely important. Today it's managed by the Manzoni Center, which is a LGBTQ health resource in the Gayborhood. So she's the founder of this conference. But what I really love her for is a piece of activism where she gets the gender markers taken off of our transportation passes. So in Philadelphia, our transportation passes are called SEPTA passes, SEPTA monthly passes. And they used to have gender markers on them, so male, female. And they said that this was important to limit sharing between couples, right? A married couple, heterosexual married couple. But this was kind of odd because it didn't prevent people who appear to be women to share, or men to share. It did, however, discriminate against trans folks. So CHARLENE is trying to get on the bus one day and she is denied entry. And the bus driver says, your gender marker doesn't match your pass, so I'm not gonna let you on. So she goes to Suburban Station, which is our primary station, and gets the gender marker switched. And then she tries to get back on the bus and she gets denied entry again. So now she's really upset and she's like, this is really ridiculous. And she stages a protest at Suburban Station called SEPTA is a Drag, and is able to get a bunch of drag performers. It's exactly what it sounds like. She's very funny. Gets Suburban Station filled with drag performers. She creates an organization called RAGE, Writers Against Gender Exclusion. And they get over 1,000 signatures overnight. It still takes SEPTA 12 years to get gender markers taken off of monthly passes. But that is because of her work, which is really cool. And we are thankful for that. And now we can all share all of our monthly passes. That's a joke, everyone. So the last one of the people I'm going to introduce you to is Gloria Cáceres. I'm going to take a drink of water before I continue. I hope everyone got to try our cocktail. Joey, are you drinking the cocktail too? No. Okay, well, this is the cocktail and it's called Not Your Zaddy's Punch. And we're sending out the recipe if people would like to try it. It's made by a local gay bartender, Sissy. So I'm really excited to share that with you. I'm gonna take a sip of water. So meet Gloria Cáceres. Gloria was the first LGBTQ Office of Affairs liaison. And she grows up in Kensington, which is an area in North Philadelphia, goes on to Westchester where she studies political science. And when she graduates, she becomes very involved in housing rights and then gets really involved also with who in Philadelphia has access to medical resources. She's concerned if you're a person of color, if you grow up in a poorer neighborhood, do you have access to the same resources as any other gay person in the city? And of course the answer is no. So she's instrumental in making sure that a lot of the medical resources available to the LGBTQ community are available throughout the city. She's really one of the first people to take some of those resources out of the formalized Gayborhood and into other parts of the city, which is really important. She's also the founder of the Philadelphia Dyke March, which is also really cool. It's an unpermitted march, which is important during Pride, especially what Pride has become today. And she, after many years of activism, is invited to become the first LGBTQ liaison to City Hall. And she really thinks about the decision because she has been yelling with the bullhorn outside of City Hall for many years. And eventually she decides to do it, which is really important because she builds out that office to make it one of the most powerful in the country. She gets anti-discrimination laws passed that are so important for LGBTQ rights. And this mural in particular is interesting. It's painted by Michelle Angela Ortiz, who is a famous Philly artist, who most of her work today has to do with immigration rights and getting our detention center in Berks County closed. This mural is about 8 years old. The building was purchased by a New York City developer about 2 years ago. And there was a big conversation about how to preserve the mural, because how do you preserve the facade of a building, especially when murals are painted on facades that are typically not architecturally important or not historically important. So there was a big conversation about how to get this particular mural preserved. Also, murals are temporary. Murals last about 40 years. Philadelphia murals are really important. We have the most commissioned murals out of any city in the world with over 4,000. So one of many. This mural could have another 30 years in this neighborhood. But so after a lot of back and forth, we were able to get state protection for this building. So the mural is here to stay, which is really cool. Before 12th Street Gym was a gym, but before that it was a gay bathhouse. Joey, do you want to talk a little bit about how it was a gay bathhouse?
So what do you mean? So it was a gay bathhouse. Before it was a gay bathhouse, it was a Jewish bath called the Schwitz.
Yes.
Before it was a Jewish bath, it was a safe house on the Underground Railroad.
Yeah.
And so it's just got like layers and layers of history, different people using this space to build community. But I wanted to mention that the developers have challenged the state protection, and so it's still a back and forth. So the artist, Michelle Angela Ortiz, is like keeping everyone kind of updated on what's happening with the mural. And you should check her out on Instagram if you're interested in that, in following that journey and supporting the preservation of this amazing woman.
Yeah. She's preserved in a few other ways as well, actually. There's a residence named after her, Project Home, which provides homes for the houseless. They created the only residence in the state that caters to LGBTQ youth. This is really important because LGBTQ youth experience higher rates of homelessness because they're kicked out of their homes for coming out. So the Gloria Caceres residence is the only one in the state that caters to LGBTQ youth, which is really cool. This is from 2018, I believe. She was also part of this big Visit Philly Women's History project. And this is outside of One Shot Coffee, which is a lesbian-owned coffee shop. And this particular piece is created by Hope Hummingbird. And I wanted to say her legacy really allowed for the LGBTQ Office of Affairs to be led predominantly by women of color. And then today is held by a trans Black woman named Selena Morrison. So that was named very recently. Before that, it was Amber Hikes, who is a Philly icon and is now in New York working for the ACLU. I'm very happy for her, but Philadelphia truly misses her. So that is a little bit about Philadelphia's Gayborhood. I hope people really enjoyed it. I wanted to tell people quickly about part of our Pride programming. So we've done a little bit of a virtual Pride programming experience where we're doing a Pride in the Box, where you can buy a different box that showcases a variety of queer-owned businesses in Philadelphia. And we have 5: Club Queer, Quiet Queer, Horny Queer, Political Queer, and a Dyke box that, as I said, showcase that are all, every item inside is from a different queer-owned business in Philly. And one in New York that includes these t-shirts with Homoko, who's a queer-owned clothing company. And our last, every box is paired with a drag performance, a live drag performance, and our last live drag performance is this Saturday at 9 p.m. So I hope some people can join us. I hope some people will buy a box. Definitely try to make it to the drag performance. All proceeds from the drag performance will be donated to Black Lives Matter. We'll also be hosting a trivia this Sunday, and all proceeds will be donated to Black Lives Matter Philly as well. So we hope some of you can join us. Thanks everyone so much. And please let me know if you have any questions. I can pass it off to Kelly.
Thank you both so much for your time. This will be in everyone's follow-up email as well, but you guys can tip Rebecca and Joey. Their Venmo is at Beyond the Bell Tours. So I highly encourage you to do that. At Impact Travel Alliance, we've really been advocating to help make sure that our local tour guides are paid at a time when travel is at a standstill. So tips are, I know, greatly appreciated for them. The Pride in a Box, also all of those look fantastic and really fun. So I encourage you to go online and get one for yourself. And we have some time for Q&A. If any of our attendees have questions, I think just to kind of like start it off, one of the things, and this is more of a general statement, but one of the things that I feel fortunate about with Impact Travel Alliance, being a global community, is we have 20,000 travelers within our community. And I am fortunate that I get to see a little bit of a bird's eye view of what's happening with those travelers all around the world. And the stories that you guys are telling today are so important, but there's something, and this is again a generalization, but there's something that I see a lot of times when someone says, oh, that's an LGBTQ tour. I'm straight, so that's not for me. And it's this weird little like disconnect of being like, okay, cool, like that's great. But these tours and experiences and stories and supporting these businesses, especially I know that your tours in person are going there and supporting them monetarily. That is so important for everyone to be doing. So I don't know if you guys have anything to add to that.
Yeah, I mean, only that I would say our queer history tour has been the attendees have been almost 100% queer. And while it's been so exciting to kind of build community for ourselves and kind of build community in Philadelphia's queer community, I really want to challenge travelers to also think about doing tours that are outside of their perspective and outside of and a tour is such a great educational resource for you, and such an important way to learn about people who are different than you, or just, a different community. So I really want, I really want straight people to come on the tour and learn, from us and kind of learn about what we have to say about Philly's queer community.
Absolutely. We have the Q&A here. I'm also going to monitor Facebook just in case we have anything that pops in. But if anyone wants to type in anything into the chat, feel free to do so. Do you guys have a favorite part of Philly that's like a must-see?
A favorite part of Philly? People always ask me this.
People ask me that about New York as well, and I'm like, God, I don't know.
I really love the Italian market. And it's a total, I mean, a lot of people will tell you it's a tourist trap. A lot of people will tell you they don't like it. But I'm really charmed by that part of the city. It has a really incredible immigrant history. It's called the Italian market, but if anyone who will go there will tell you that there are immigrants from all over the world in it, especially South Asian and especially Southeast Asian and especially Mexican and Central American.
Joey, do you have one?
I would say I really am drawn to water. So the rivers are a great place to hang out. I particularly like the Schuylkill River, which has a great path to bike down. It leads into Fairmount Park. There's just like many ways to enjoy that place. And also as you get close to Penn, there's all of these food trucks that serve all different types of food. So it's a cool like grab and go picnic spot for the summer.
Amazing. We have 2 comments. Dave said, as a straight person, I never thought to go on an LGBTQ tour. I enjoyed this virtual one and will keep an eye out for future opportunities. That's awesome, Dave. Thank you. Tom said, I used to come to Philly once a month for an entire week when I worked at my old company, which was headquartered in Philly. I miss the Gayborhood so much. This was a nice trip down memory lane. I need a night at Woody's. I
went to Get Up to show part of the Pride boxes were selling these shirts, the Make Woody's Gay Again shirts.
That's amazing.
So maybe that's fun.
And then Carrie said, thank you so much for doing this. I learned a ton and I've never been to Philly, so this was awesome. I identify as a heterosexual female and agree, admittedly, look over LGBTQ focused tours as well when I travel. I will be making a goal to go on more of these tours worldwide and definitely beyond the bell when I make it to Philly. Also, hello from Brazil. Obrigado. Awesome. Well, I think to close it out, Joey and Rebecca, do you guys have any just like one tip for travelers to be more sustainable or to have a positive impact on your community when they visit, or any just kind of lasting takeaway that you want to leave with for tonight?
Wow.
Just putting you on the spot.
One thing. I mean, I think I don't want to insult anyone's intelligence, but I think being mindful about who you're supporting matters. So, you know, thinking about who owns a restaurant when you're going out, like what are the communities that you want to be supporting? And just that question, I guess, feels important to me. A lot of you probably asked that anyway, but that feels important.
I think that's a good one. In terms of sustainable, in terms of environmental, I think, and this is really tough, but I mean, the thing that I see our folks do the most is probably like everybody brings not a reusable water bottle or gets coffee with one of the single-use plastic cups. So I think it's really hard when you're traveling to not do that, because you're kind of trying to be convenient and fast and just kind of have your needs met physically. But I think trying to think ahead to your trip and kind of packing a thermos and packing a reusable water bottle. I know I am the 1 millionth person to say this out loud, but it is something that I do continuously see, especially in the summer.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that it's tough to remember, but definitely every little action counts. Well, thank you guys both so much again. If anyone's looking for further resources, check out Beyond the Bell. As mentioned, they have a Venmo at Beyond the Bell Tours if you'd like to give them a tip. And also their Pride in the Boxes are available online. On Impact Travel Alliance on our own website, we have a couple of resources. We have an op-ed editorial piece on rethinking your allyship, And we also have a in-depth blog post on ways to support the LGBT community when you're traveling. Thank you all again so much, and I will see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.